Welcome to PharmacyToDose, the critical care podcast. And I'm your host, Nick Peters. Wherever you are and however you are listening, thank you. Well, we moved from sunny Phoenix to cloudy San Diego here as I am at the Neurocritical Care Society 2024 annual meeting. And of course, we are back with the mini recaps, right? Of course, letting you know what's going on in this conference. And for today's Wednesday mini recap, it is got two awesome discussions. So first, it starts off with Colleen Barthol joining us, talking about receiving NCS, the Fellowship of Neurocritical Care Society, FNCS, which she received. She was the one pharmacist who received this year. So talking about her experience, what went into that, learning points, advice for others, all great things. And then conference co-chairs Sherif, Mahmoud, and Leslie Hamilton, they come on to talk about their experiences, what goes into planning a meeting like this, what was unexpectedly challenging, what are something that they wish the listeners would know about, so much more. Did they get new free time, right? All that stuff. So this is a really great discussion highlighting the Wednesday going-ons of the 2024 NCS annual meeting. So here we go. Not only has my voice recovered from the ACCP annual meeting, but we are continuing going out west in our quest to cover some pharmacy-driven conferences, and we are in lovely San Diego right now at the Neurocritical Care Conference, and I am sitting next to, actually across from, a pharmacist inductee into the Fellowship of Neurocritical Care Society, and so much more. And that's Colleen Barthol. Now, Colleen is a neurocritical care clinical pharmacy specialist at University Health in San Antonio, Texas. Hi, Colleen. How are you?
Hi there. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, this is exciting. Always like celebrating wins, and there are a few things as awesome as getting a fellowship, especially we mentioned neurocritical care in your specialty. So we've highlighted on previous episodes the process of becoming a fellow for ACCP and SCCM. Tell us a little about the process for NCS, and we can kind of think about how that differs just a tad.
Sure, of course. I think I came into NCS, a little bit later in my career than most. And so, one of these things I sort of had on my professional bucket list was to become a fellow of an organization. And so, the one thing that really caught my attention with NCS is the pharmacy group and the section. They're so cohesive, so welcoming, and yet such a small group, but a mighty group in terms of their impact. And I think it was just, it really encourages you to get involved, and it's so easy to get involved. I think I filled out one of those get involved campaigns initially and said, I can do this. I'll start on the annual meeting committee. How hard can this be? And then one thing leads to another, and they find out you're interested. And then all of a sudden you find yourself, and you volunteered for like 3 or 4 things.
Oh, you want to help? We'll take all
Exactly. They're very eager, especially when they find people that are passionate about neurocritical care and willing to, put in their time. Because obviously all of these things that we do, we're volunteers because we all have jobs that we're doing as well. So, I think it was something that I was first in awe. I mean, I think of the first 2 pharmacists that I met, Aaron Cook and Gretchen Brophy, and those are names that everybody's like, wow, they're so incredible in all their accomplishments, and, I want to be like them. And, it's really daunting, I think, when you first think about it. But, when I first joined and started getting involved, it wasn't but a couple years into it, I started thinking about, okay, what does it take to become a fellow, and I looked at that application process, and it looked a little overwhelming. I mean, you had to be a member for 5 years. You had to have gone to 5 meetings, and then there was a series of different things and categories that you had to have proof of, involvement in. And so, I think I did a lot within my own organization first. As a pharmacist in critical care, we started our own neurocritical care unit that was born out of the surgical trauma unit. A lot of us were working as pharmacists within surgical trauma, and neuro was born from that. I think we had 8 beds, and there was 1 neurointensivist, 1 advanced practice provider and me, so that's a little overwhelming to be that person, in the beginning. And to think now where we've come over the last 12, 15 years to where we have 3 intensivists, 20 beds, 7 APPs, and I'm advocating to try to get a second neurocritical care pharmacist just because of the growth. So it's really pretty exciting kind of to look back over that time. And in addition to the neuro ICU side and development, we have a really robust residency program at University Health. And so we started with just 2 PGY1 residents about 20 years ago. And, now we have 20 residents. 2 of them I'm in charge of that are critical care residents. And so, it's been a process. And just to kind of look back, I'm grateful for all the opportunities. So I think, program development is one of the pillar areas. And that was something that was pretty easy for me. But then you get into neurocritical care scholarly activities and publishing and, and things like that. And it took a little bit of time for me to get to the point where I could, publish articles and give lectures or be asked to give a lecture. I actually gave a lecture at the neurocritical care meeting last year, and that was probably one of the most nervous times I've ever had, is giving a lecture in front of, an audience of that, where you have a few pharmacists, but you've got all these well-known providers, It was certainly an exciting time, and then just leadership activities and collaboration and professional, growth. I think it's all really been amazing to look back on it. But I will admit, when I first looked at the application, I thought, how am I ever going to be this? How am I ever going to achieve this? The time came a little closer to that 5-year mark, and, I was able to talk to a lot of people who were mentors, for me. I think Aaron was the section chair for the pharmacy section. He had asked me to be on that group, and then Jeff Mucksavage, took over. And so Jeff gave me a lot of opportunities, to be involved, and recently said, hey, do you want to co-chair this PONS, resurrection? And I thought, oh, what does that involve? So luckily with Sherry Tokomaru and I are kind of resurrecting that, and we've been able to connect and meet a lot of other pharmacists through that process. So, really the opportunities are endless to get involved. And I think, when you get to that point where you think you're close, then I started reaching out to people like Leslie Hamilton and Jason McKee and, hey, what do you think? This is what I've done, and they were all very encouraging to go for it and apply. And so, I did, fingers crossed, and was super, super excited to be awarded that this year.
It's really cool that you didn't start in neurocritical care, because I think, as a jack of all trades guy, I think if you, in my mind, it's one of those if I don't start in this specialty, how am I ever going to achieve X, Y, or Z, right? We're already so behind the 8 ball.
For sure.
Can also confirm great residency training as one of your previous residents, good friend, Clay Small, still at IU.
Excellent.
But so do you think, because I completely agree with what you started with, the NCS pharmacy group and community is awesome. Do you feel like you would have even applied without the help or kind of nudging in a sense? Because I think that feeling of when you ask people that you look up to and they tell you to do it, that's kind of the nudge of okay, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's always been one of those things that was my professional bucket list, if you will. But I don't know if I would have taken the leap quite yet. I think it definitely helped having the encouragement of those mentors and people that I look up to. And I think that's one of the great things about the pharmacist group is, I think, Jeff says we're small but mighty, and so it really is a very supportive group.
So when you find out you're going to get the award, the recognition here, what kind of celebration? Let us know. I'm all about talking about the party. So you kind of highlighted all the hard work that went into it. How are you celebrating all of this here?
Yeah, it's been really kind of surreal because, so many people have just stopped to congratulate me, and not just pharmacists, other providers. I was the only pharmacist recipient this year, which is a big responsibility or a big,
well, it feels probably like a big thing to carry when we've had multiple over the past few years.
Yeah, and so, but it's been really nice to see just the congratulating, everybody, just commenting and complimenting me on the things I've done and the things I've been involved with. And it's really heartwarming, to know that. And everybody has been great. In fact, at the pharmacy section meeting yesterday, Jeff kept commenting that he was going to continue to embarrass me throughout the meeting, but in a good way. I think just, I'm not used to having like the spotlight be on me. And so I think that part has taken a little bit of getting used to. And then, you're asking me, hey, do you want to be on my podcast?
Yep.
I'm like, oh my gosh, be on your podcast. I've listened to your podcast, but how cool to be on your podcast. So I'm just really, really grateful for all the support. And, I really appreciate everybody's sincere wishes.
Well, it's a huge honor, well-deserved. Did you have to wear anything special when they recognize you? Are you wearing like the robes you do in SCCM where it feels like you're graduating high school again?
No, I was curious. I was like, what am I going to wear? And I thought, how do I figure this out? They didn't really tell you much about it. And so I go on the website.
Okay, that's a great question. Walk us through, because you're trying to thread the needle. You don't want to be overdressed, but underdressed is a problem too.
And I wondered, like, okay, well, the meeting is business casual. That's the general mode. And I thought, well, do I wear a suit? Like, do I, how dressed up do I get? And so literally I went on the website because they have a picture of last year's inductees. And I looked at what everyone was wearing. And I thought, okay, she's in a dress, she's in pants, and so that's how I figured out what I was going to wear.
Okay, that is fun. And if you go, if anyone goes to the fellowship page on neurocriticalcare.org, you'll see the three pharmacists that we were talking about, friends, and two of them friends of the pod, Keaton Smetana and Gabe Fontaine. Okay, that's actually real funny. And that is something that is under-recognized, the importance of, because there's pictures of one of those, it's going to be something that you use a lot.
Yeah, and this picture is going to be on the website for at least a year, right? Until they swap out with the next year.
I'm assuming. Think about that too. I think that's probably the next. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So you're kind of gauging the vibe of what they're wearing and thinking this is all dressed similarly.
Yeah. So obviously you got the advice to kind of go forward with the application, but whether it was for the application itself or maybe beforehand, was there any advice or things you got that you look back on and was like, wow, that was really good advice, or I'm glad I listened, or something like that?
I mean, I think if anything, it was just that get involved in something. Is what Aaron and Jeff would say to me, no matter how small in the beginning. And, you'd be amazed at how quickly when people get to know you and see that you're hardworking and you're excited about it, that, they're willing to extend other opportunities for you. So I think, it's just taking those first steps to get involved. It can be very overwhelming at first because you're thinking, who am I? Among all these great people and all their accolades.
You've listed nothing but legends in the beginning, right? Aaron,
exactly.
Leslie, Gretchen, right? One-namers that people in the neuro world will know, especially pharmacists.
It's just, so I think it's just taking that initial step and not being afraid to get involved. And then, as soon as you say yes to one thing, this year has been really exciting, and I've gotten asked to be involved in a lot of different things I would not have even predicted. So, I mean, you and I kind of talked before we got on this podcast about being asked to be on a national guideline. I mean, wow, what an honor to be, part of a guideline working group. It's definitely opened my eyes to all the things that go into that process, which, I mean, you have no idea unless you've been on that side of it. And then most recently, being asked to be the incoming section chair for the pharmacy section, I'm like, wow, okay, there's an elite list of people, and to be considered even for something like that is really,
you are in
really
that list.
amazing.
You may act like you're not, but you are in that list. Fellow chair. For the listeners, we can't mention what guideline she is on, but all I can say is Colleen will be back when those get published to chat through them, because it'll be something that we're interested in for sure. And it's, I think the other thing that stands out, you mentioned getting really good advice, and I wouldn't even I dabble in the neuro world, but all of these pharmacists are so generous with their time and advice, and I think it's intimidating until you meet them and get advice from. And I say them as a universal thing, because they're all very nice, very kind. They're going to go out of their way to help you get involved. And like you said, when you got involved, I'm sure it was just literally being on a committee, a committee member, right?
Yeah,
and
that's all
at
first.
Where it started, right?
Yep. Exactly. And then all of a sudden, I think it was Corinne Berger, and she was doing Pharmacy Journal Club. And I thought, oh, sure, I can moderate a journal club. How hard is that? And then, like I said, one thing leads to another. And, when you get professional satisfaction and feel a sense of like giving back to the future generations and being able to help mentor those pharmacy residents who are presenting. I've been fortunate to have a couple of my own pharmacy residents get their names pulled and be able to present at the NCS Pharmacy Journal Club. So it's a really good feeling.
Yeah, and we mentioned Aaron. We'd be remiss not to say he's so good at mentoring and helping with this. He's literally leading a session on it, Pharmacists Making Waves, Mentorship to Achieve Excellence. So I can't say enough nice things about him. So you mentioned incoming chair of the NCS pharmacy section. So we've highlighted on previous ones how amazing it is. And to me, it's definitely it may be a smaller group if you just looked at sheer numbers, but it is a quality over quantity scenario because it is a who's who. You go through the list, and it is people that are all working towards a similar goal of helping advance pharmacists and improve all the things that we can do. And it's awesome. But what cool or unique things does like the NCS pharmacy section do within the Neurocritical Care Society? Why is this such an awesome section?
Yeah, I think if you look at the list of people on the NCS pharmacy leadership team, for one, there's about maybe a dozen or 15 of them. Everyone has a huge role. I think you're going to see a lot of these pharmacists are like chairs of different committees within NCS. So outside the whole pharmacy section, they're chairs of like guideline committee. Carrie Kim is, chair of the guideline committee. We've got pharmacists that are chairs or co-chairs of research subcommittees, and these are not pharmacy research committees. These are like research within NCS, and so I think it's really neat to see the presence and the role that a lot of our pharmacists have within this, the entire organization. And pharmacists are definitely a small group. I mean, there's a couple hundred of us in the organization, but I feel like, we do a lot in terms of the contributions to the organization. And it's really neat to see all of that. And I think we saw a lot of young, excited pharmacists that came to the, section meeting that we had and really seemed eager to get involved. So I'm hopeful that we get, new blood, fresh people that are wanting to get involved in our organization as they see what currently everyone is doing.
It's
contagious.
It's a great feeling. That's exactly right. Is they come in like happy and excited, and that enthusiasm is contagious. In the same way, if everyone's negative and bad, that is also contagious. So,
exactly.
There was a session today. The power of positive thinking, or the happiness advantage, just certainly plays a part there. Okay, so let's give an elevator pitch. Why, number one, if they're listening, they should be a member of the NCS pharmacy section. However, if they're not, give us the sell. Why should they be?
Oh, absolutely. I think if anything, it's a way to network and meet other like-minded people. For me in San Antonio, I'm the only neurocritical care pharmacist. So I just found out recently there is a neuro ICU pharmacist at one of our private hospitals in town, but she's newer in her position. But prior to that, it was just me. And so I think, when I want answers to things or I want to connect with other people, I have a great critical care group that I work with, but I'm it when it comes to neurocritical care specifically. So for me, it was it was all about meeting other people and, comparing ideas. Hey, I've got this weird patient with X, Y, and Z. What would you do? And the listserv has been a great resource in terms of dealing with, we're talking about drug shortages and all those types of things and just how other people have handled similar scenarios. And so I think for me, it's been the networking and meeting other people that work in a similar field, since I'm kind of unique in San Antonio.
And that makes it, when you're if you're the only medical ICU pharmacist, is different. When you're in a field where, these questions that you're asking, right? You can't even find case reports trying to find some of these things. So you're truly asking what have you all done, when this came up the one or two times? Because it's not like these are daily recurrent questions.
We're looking for the expert opinions because we're doing literature searches and we're like, wow, I can't find anything to answer that question. Yeah. So it's so great to be able to reach out to a network of people, and I mean, I have cell phone numbers of a lot of these people, whether it's a listserv or a text or an email, but it's easy to get in touch with people and they're so responsive, sure, let me help you out, which I appreciate.
Okay, so tonight, this is actually really fun. We're drinking on a boat. We're going on the USS Midway. So my last question, do they give you like a sash to wear? Are you going to have like a crown? Are we supposed to refer to you? I always joke, oh, fellow, my fellow is what I call new fellows at meetings and things. So what, are they giving you some sort of mark that everyone, or is it like, is everyone supposed to like get you it's like if you, everyone's supposed to get you a drink?
I'm thinking so.
Or is it the opposite? If you get a hole in one, you're supposed to buy everybody. Since you're the one, are you supposed to buy all of them? How does that work?
That could get really expensive though.
That's USS Midway's big boat.
Because everybody that I've been talking to is going to this thing tonight. So I don't know. No special sash or crown that I'm aware of as of yet, but the day is still young. But I'm just excited to celebrate with my fellow NCS pharmacists and get this cool opportunity.
Okay, last question. Do you get like a tattoo or something now that like does the NCS grew? Do the fellows all have something they do?
We're all branded or something.
Well, you said branded. I said tattoo. That felt like look at that. You can take the girl out of Texas, but you cannot take the Texas out of
Absolutely. I have no idea, but I'm definitely feeling very very excited about just the opportunity and the privilege of being a fellow of neurocritical care. And I'm, excited to continue being involved because it's given me a lot of professional satisfaction. And I think if anybody is on the fence or, curious about getting involved, I'd be happy to talk with them more about my journey because it's definitely been very fun and rewarding.
Colleen, you're the best. Congrats on your fellowship, chair, all the great things.
Thank you so much.
Getting to receive this, have a great conference, and truly just soak in all the accomplishments. And appreciate you coming on the podcast, despite you thinking you don't belong. This is definitely your spot. So we appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Nothing better than when we get to highlight awesome pharmacists doing awesome things. And that's exactly what we have today, where I'm with not one, but two pharmacist co-chairs of this meeting. Very lucky to be joined by Leslie Hamilton and Sherif Mahmoud. So Leslie, Associate Professor of Clinical Pharmacy and a Neurocritical Care Clinical Pharmacist at the University of Tennessee. And Sherif is a Clinical Professor, Associate Dean for the Faculty of Pharmacy at the University of Alberta, as well as a Neurocritical Care Clinical Pharmacist. Leslie, Sherif, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Is this the first time you've breathed today?
No, we've had a little bit of a break this afternoon. What do you think, Sherif?
Yeah, we did. We did like maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So as co-chairs, coming into this meeting, would you say that you were like excited or nervous? Because I could see both with you all being involved in the planning of it.
I think for me, it was both. I was excited because I knew all the work that we had put into it and all the sessions, and it was so nice to see them all together. But also I was nervous because are the speakers going to show up? Are they, how are the talks going to go over? That sort of stuff. You feel a little bit more ownership over it. But how about you, Sherif?
Exactly the same. Like I was very excited to see all the story like unfolds and all the sessions come up. But I had some worried because I was moderating some large all sessions, and I was hoping everything goes all right. But I'm glad so far so good.
From everything I've heard, everything's been really great. You all have done a great job, and so the fact that I could see both perspectives and you all felt that makes sense to me. Now, Leslie, you just came from ACCP just like I did. So is it different attending a conference that you didn't have a role in planning versus when you did? Because you were not a co-chair of the ACCP annual meeting. Of course, you are here. So how was it a little different coming to them?
I felt like I could relax maybe a little bit more there and enjoy the CE and catch up with people. And I've been doing that here as well. But yeah, it's a definitely different feeling. And Sherif, aren't you getting ready to go to Cairo for another conference?
Oh, yeah, in a day. But I just stay for one day in my home and then go to Egypt. Yeah. But I'm glad I'm not in the planning committee of the other conference. So I would just do my session and chill out the rest. Yeah.
Wow, that is so... when you toss in an international conference, that makes things a little more difficult because I think doing back-to-back conferences is not for the faint of heart, especially if you are not in your 20s anymore. We are tired, but we are the awesome content and programming and all the great people in the NCS pharmacy section is certainly helping that. Have either of you been on a planning committee before, or is this kind of your first time helping plan a meeting like this, annual meeting or gathering?
At least for me, I've been involved with SCCM's programming committee, so I've helped with some SCCM planning, and I've been on the annual meeting committee, not necessarily a co-chair, but annual meeting committee before for NCS. So I knew a little bit about how it worked, but maybe not all the details. What about you, Sherif?
That was my first time in the annual meeting committee. I just my only main involvement with the conference was presenting sessions, but this is my first time to be involved in planning. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were on the actual committee beforehand. What's how is it different? Is it one where, kind of instead of kind of being a follower, you're essentially a leader of the group? Is that obviously the biggest difference? But are there other things that were notable between them, like the changes of that?
Yeah, before when I was just a normal committee member, I read the abstracts and I reviewed the sessions, but it wasn't as much as interacting with the speakers, making sure their slides were turned in, any sort of practice sessions. And also, I think something that was unique for me was looking at all the submitted sessions from our members and trying to pair them together into an hour-long session. Like, how could this fit with this, and then how could this fit with that? And so I moderated one today about equity and diversity, and the three speakers had submitted their information completely separately, but it ended up working really well together. So that was something that I enjoyed.
And that is the only other place that I've heard do that. It's funny you said you helped with SCCM. SCCM is the only other one I've heard that does that, where they might take multiple session ideas from people unrelated and will combine them together. I haven't heard that as much in the pharmacy side. I always think that's really cool because it's, it might not fit as its own topic, but combined, as a 15-minute or 20, it's awesome. So one thing that stood out, there are 6 either co-chairs or chairs of this NCS meeting. How was it having that much leadership? Because I only ask because I'm used to seeing 2 to 3 probably kind of chairs. Did that make things easier when you have that many involved? Is it kind of like too many cooks in the kitchen?
I would say that process is a 1-year process. Maybe we'll start planning for tomorrow for the next year conference, and having those multiple co-chairs actually really helped because it's a lot of work, right? And two co-chairs will be involved in a specific programming in the conference. One about science, one about clinical, one about quality, and so I think it went really. The process was all seamless and went really well. I really appreciate having people we're stronger together. Yeah, definitely. If you're doing it alone, it's going to be hard.
And one thing I will add that I really appreciated about the the new president of NCS is that it was a very multi-professional planning committee. So we had a physician, 2 of us as pharmacists, we had APPs, and so it was great getting perspectives from all the different professions. So I thought the vision of the society was really well represented in the co-chairs too.
Really impressive. Out of 6 people, there are 4 disciplines, and that kind of says it all. Also says it all that the pharmacists are also 2 of the ones that have more than one person, also showing the awesome role that you all play. So was there anything unexpectedly challenging or something that created issues that maybe you didn't expect? Because I'm sure it's a year-long process. There's all the people. Not everything went 100% to plan. So was there anything that stood out of wow, I had no idea this was so hard or complicated before I kind of got involved with helping plan it?
I think for me, something that I learned is working to find a keynote speaker and all the things that go into that, and finding something that really represents the entire society, and it's going to be informative and a good topic. In my quality and safety, I was the track chair for that. Nothing was super controversial, but I know Sherif, definitely had some issues that they had to work through.
Yeah, this year we had limitation of the poster boards, and we had to go back and forth to decide on the number of posters to be accepted and so on. We found this as the process, lots of discussion, time consuming, but I'm glad it all worked out right now. So that's what the main one. The other thing is time. We have multiple commitments. It's not a one job we have, and having the time to do that over the year was challenging, but it was really an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, it's not like this is you on NCS doesn't employ you all, right? This isn't your primary job. Probably not even second or third, right? This is it's important and you're doing it, but if you're of all the responsibilities, right, there's still lots of stuff going on. So that's a really good point. Did you all, is it a divide and conquer sort of strategy with all the chairs and co-chairs, or is it everyone kind of helps with everything? Divide and conquer meaning like you kind of have one or two things that you really help on, I guess.
So like it's both. It's actually like as I mentioned, there could be streams, right? Like a clinical quality and science, and it's kind of divide and conquer. Like each two co-chairs working in a specific area in programming in the conference, and then after that, like we get together and make decisions about larger topic, main themes, keynote speakers, and these kind of stuff.
Something that I appreciated is that we each had a small group of 5 to 6 members of the annual meeting committee that we were also in charge of. So those people ended up becoming moderators for us. They helped us blindly rank the sessions when we were trying to, pick which sessions that we wanted to select. And so we also had kind of that leadership role. We are a liaison, of course, to the whole leadership group, but then we had 5 or 6 people who were working with us as well.
That kind of really hits home. We just left the session with pharmacist extraordinaire Aaron Cook, and one of his big messages is get involved. And unbeknownst, you literally just cemented it because, you have committee members, and all it starts with is volunteering. And the next thing you know, you might be helping moderate a session or doing some of those things, and all because you're like, oh, I'll help out here. And so it really is, I really like that you made that highlight. And I think you crushed it with the keynotes because, John Moon and that whole story of the Freedom House ambulance and America's first paramedics was, wow, powerful stuff. And Shireen Thor, the breaking barriers. I'm always the power of positive thinking and like the happiness advantage that she talked about. I'm a firm believer in that. So I'm all in on those. So really, really good job. And I can imagine that it's really hard, especially with the other people I've pointed out. The finances can make an issue with that too from a keynote perspective there. So multidisciplinary meetings such as this, how do you balance having sessions dedicated to all of the disciplines and not just focusing on physicians, or even from our perspective, just focusing on pharmacists, pharmacotherapy side of things?
I think that's something that we learned as we went along, and when we first received the sessions and were ranking them, we didn't always know the profession and who submitted them and that sort of stuff, but really trying to balance drug therapy, something that pharmacists are interested in. Also thinking about, I think we don't have enough bedside nurses in the society, so also things that would interest a bedside nurse, but also APPs and physicians, and so really trying to balance the interest of the whole society.
Yeah, I agree, and we looked into the diversity as well, not only in the profession, also diversity like males and females, junior members and versus senior members and so on, and making sure that the conference programming is of interest to everyone, not just one direction. And I can see this actually worked, right?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the challenges of nurse, and literally I was looking at a session and there was one talking about delirium and the limitations of our scoring systems and how to use them in neurocritical care. And it's like, my gosh, I can't think of anything more pertinent than a bedside nurse, right? They're doing that Q shift. And so kind of just one example, but that's a good idea. I'm sure it's probably pretty hard because it's very... Even though we don't necessarily focus just on meds, I think trying to have a perspective of like, oh, I wonder what the neurosurgeon would want, or I wonder what the, X, Y, or Z, that could probably be pretty challenging. So awesome sessions we've talked about. When you were coming in, was there one session that stood out that you were most excited about, or something when you were in the planning phase of like, wow, this is going to be really good?
You already mentioned it, but I was very much looking forward to John Moon's session. I had no idea, did not know the history of the EMS, EMT service in the United States, and so was really interested in that. And personally, the session I moderated today about equity, diversity, and incivility in the workplace, I was really looking forward to that, and it was an all APP panel, and they did a great job. So that's what I was looking forward to.
Yeah, I agree. John Moon's session was very excited about, and also was very excited about the clinical trials updates, because this is a big session that we to spend a lot of time carefully selecting the talks for clinical trials that of interest to everyone. So it's not like just only, not like all drug studies or nursing studies or like specific for everyone. And so far I heard the feedback was great. So.
I thought it was great, right? Highlighted things like emotion, extinguish, and what the listeners may not know if they weren't here. Sherif moderated that, arguably the most attended and anticipated session without knowing the top clinical trials is something that everyone wants to see at these conferences and events, and you were moderating it. So that's really, really cool. What an honor. And just shows the emphasis on multidisciplinary, right? A pharmacist moderating the clinical trials thing. I'm not sure everywhere would do that. So I think that's really cool and a testament to that push for multidisciplinary stuff. So how busy are you? I've seen your names all over the conference. Like, what would if we're doing a Likert scale of 1 to 10, where are you on the busyness?
I would say 11. Yeah, like this year, it's like I didn't stay in my room for a minute. It's just only I go home. I go to my room at the end of the day and sleep, and that's it. Like, what about you?
I'm had a really good time at the conference, but I think Sherif and I are both probably glad that things are also winding down to get a little bit of rest. I was laughing because one of the staff members with NCS sent us calendar invites for all the things that we needed to go to, and my phone every 10 minutes it was like, oh my goodness, what do I have to go to next? And so that when I saw all those come through, I was like, oh my goodness, we have a lot of things that we're going to be doing. So that made me, I don't know if it made you laugh, Sherif, but all the calendar invites made me laugh.
Yeah, definitely made me laugh. I was like, what's happening here? Like, it's like a Christmas tree in my calendar.
Now, the real thing, when ACCP, we talked about when you add stuff to the schedule, the time zone was wrong. Even though it may have been overwhelming, or the time's right? Is that at least giving you some heads up?
No, my phone, I'm on Eastern time normally, and so my phone had everything so I was constantly having to think, okay, 3 hours difference between Pacific. Was yours correct, Sherif?
My phone is correct, yes, but my laptop is not because it doesn't update. It's because it's mountain time. And so I have to usually subtract 1 hour.
I don't know that we know what time zone we're in right now. You and I came from Arizona. You're getting ready to go to the Middle East, and so it's like, which time zone are we in right now?
So it's kind of like you all are driving the old car that they refuse to change the hour time, so it's like 2 hours and 5 minutes behind. So you just are used to that.
So I want to add, what I did, I added a comment in each calendar invite, written actual time, just to make sure it doesn't update automatically and ruin everything for me.
Look at that. That is past you looking out for future you. That's a good idea. So when is your duty officially over? When is it? Has the torch actually been passed, or is it like the moment it hits 12:01 tomorrow, it is done?
Technically, but I think both of us are going to be helping out next year, so it's just kind of rolling on to the next year. But in terms of this meeting, yes, it will be tomorrow at lunchtime.
Yeah, tomorrow at lunchtime, yes.
So I was going to ask if you miss anything about it, but clearly there is, because you're rolling it back for number 2.
I really think continuity, though. I've learned a lot this year, and I think it really helps. This is how sessions get formed and things to think about. So I think that will help. You have anything to add, Sherif?
Yeah, I like the mix. Continuity is very important, but having other members that haven't participated before to learn, and then they take the torch for the third year and so on.
So when I've talked to others like Marilyn Bullock, for example, for SCCM, one of the things is she's like, you get a newfound respect for certain things, or you wish people did certain things after you've gone through that. So was there anything as you were going through the planning, talking about blind ranking, all those things that you want to let the listeners hey, this actually is really helpful for us. If we could do a little bit more of X, Y, or Z, this would help us for programming or to really keep making these future meetings here and other places awesome.
I think one thing is submit sessions. People may think I'm too junior. This may not be of interest to everybody, but if you don't submit it, we don't know about it, and that's where we get our sessions from, is member submissions. So make sure you submit your sessions. Something that I've learned at the meeting is how important it is as a moderator to keep everybody on time, because there's other things that are coming in the room behind you, and you want to give everyone a fair chance to speak. And so just how important kind of staying on those time restraints are.
And it's also setting deadlines for every single task is very important. That would be very helpful and makes everybody on track.
Now I have to ask. I think I know the answer, but I'd be remiss not to ask it. So, did either one of you create the actual slogan, "Making waves, actualizing the extraordinary"? Is that a co-chair responsibility?
It is not. Creativity is not my forte, but I'm pretty sure Susan Yeager with the marketing team, they are the ones that created that. So I really appreciated how Shireen Thor this morning really put the waves into her talk and really kind of emphasized the theme.
No, I wasn't involved. Like when I came into the committee, I saw it, but like they suggested that for us, and they asked for feedback and said, "Look, this is great." Like, yeah.
It's like, wait, you're telling me we have it, and I don't have to actually try to think of 8 ideas? Like, yeah, that's. I mean, I think it worked really well being in San Diego, right? Making waves. I think that's awesome. Kind of closing out. Anyone else that you want to shout out that's been a huge help for you all or for the planning of the meeting itself?
I want to shout out the pharmacy group. We have a great pharmacy group, and if you are interested in or practice in neurocritical care and never have been to the meeting, we are a friendly group. We like to have a good time and hope that you come and join us. But there's been some great leadership with lots of pharmacists involvement, so that's who I would like to shout out.
Agree 100%. Pharmacy group. Go pharmacists, go.
I mean, it is, and I can attest to it. Now, I'm sure people are listening like, oh, of course they're going to be nice to you. But I was truly, my last meeting was last year, and I wouldn't say that I was best friends with everyone here. But you have that feeling. It's a very close-knit group, but not closed-off group. It's a close-knit, very welcome to come in. Everyone is very helpful, and you may see legend names like Leslie, Sherif, Aaron, Gretchen, but all of, everyone is willing to help, give you advice, learn from things that they've done. So yeah, sign off. It's people may say it's a little, maybe a smaller group than some of the others, but it's a quality over quantity because everybody's awesome. I'm glad you did it because 10 out of 10, it's one of the best pharmacy groups, especially in critical care, but really just in general.
I agree 100%. I want to add also, like, one of the main reasons I'm doing it, pharmacists, like, I consider those part of my family. Like, I've been here at the annual meetings since 2012. They're a part of my family members. Like, I would like to see them every year. Yeah.
So this is your 12th in a row?
Yeah, I missed 2 in the middle,
okay.
but about
okay.
I would say 10 total.
I mean, that's still nice, but I thought you were about to break that you have perfect attendance since 20. That was okay. Still, it is, I can understand it's such a great conference, and you all did such a good job not only planning it, but letting me steal your 35 minutes of freedom during the day before we go on the USS tonight. So awesome job. Always love collaborating with you both. Thanks for being so kind and generous with your time, not only for here, but the meeting itself. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Another huge thanks to the 3 guests, Colleen Barthol, Sherif Mahmoud, and Leslie Hamilton. Appreciate all 3 of them taking time from their busy conference to join me and make sure everyone's up to date on all the great happenings in the pharmacy world in neurocritical care and at the Neurocritical Care Society annual meeting. So reach out to me at PharmacyToDose, right? If you've been following, you've been hopefully keeping up with all the ACCP recaps, but then of course, letting you know all the comings and happenings here in San Diego at the 2024 NCS annual meeting. PharmacyToDose.com is the website. Feel free to send me that old-fashioned email, pharmacytodose@gmail.com. But until next time, I'm Nick Peters, and this is Pharmacy to Dose, the Critical Care Podcast.